What would happen if, instead of trying to control everything, we simply allowed life to flow? Why do we insist on swimming against the current, even when everything inside us is crying out for rest? And is constant effort truly the path to fulfillment, or just a reflection of our fear that we're not enough?
Lao Tzu once wrote, "When you arrive at non-action, nothing will be left undone." Zhuangzi added, "Life is limited, but knowledge is limitless. To pursue the limitless with the limited is a mistake." We live in a time when anxiety is mistaken for productivity, and silence is quickly filled with notifications, plans, and goals. The modern world, with its rush and demands, has pushed us into an almost sacred belief. If you're not constantly doing something, you're wasting time. But what if that very belief is what's keeping us from truly living? We've all felt the exhaustion that comes from forcing situations, people, and outcomes. We try to control the uncontrollable, as if happiness was something we could squeeze out of life through sheer willpower. But the more we push, the more things slip away. Deep down, there's a voice, small but persistent, that whispers, maybe there's another way. And that way is Wu Wei. In this video, we're going to explore not just a philosophical concept, but a forgotten art. The art of letting things happen. An ancient wisdom that, far from making us passive, invites us into a kind of action that flows, without friction, without force, but with presence. A way of living that's lighter, clearer, and paradoxically, more effective. Get ready for a journey that doesn't demand effort, but openness. That doesn't ask for ready-made answers, but for honest questions. And that maybe, just maybe, invites you to let go of the wheel, trust the current, and finally breathe. Once upon a time, there was a young farmer. Inspired by motivational videos, he decided he would make his crops thrive like never before. Work hard. Push your limits. You are the master of your destiny. He heard these phrases so many times that he began to believe success depended solely on effort. The next day, he marched out to the field and tried to speed up the growth of his plants by pulling them upward with his own hands. Then he doubled the amount of water, thinking more is always better. The result? He destroyed everything. This modern fable, seemingly absurd, reveals a very real wound of our time. The idea that we can, and should, control everything. That the world bends to willpower, and that the universe is just an obstacle to be conquered by our determination. But this mindset comes at a price, and that price is called suffering. The farmer didn't fail because he didn't try hard enough. He failed because he didn't understand the natural timing of things. He tried to rush a process that was never truly under his control. And this is where the ancient wisdom of Taoism comes in, especially through the figure of Lao Tzu, who reminds us, the world governs itself. It doesn't need our interference. How often in life do we insist on forcing something that simply isn't ready? We force relationships, decisions, answers. We put the cart before the horse, driven by a silent anxiety and an invisible pressure. But the world has its own rhythm. Nature follows cycles. The sun rises and sets without anyone needing to command it. The seasons change. The tides follow the moon. And even our emotions move through internal currents that can't be tamed by brute force. No matter how much technology we create, no matter how many goals we set, our existence is still deeply intertwined with what we can't control. And anything forced, sooner or later, breaks. The idea that effort equals results is a dangerous half-truth, because not all effort is wise. There is intelligent effort, the kind that recognizes limits, timing, and signs. And there is blind effort, driven by vanity, insecurity, or desperation. Often we don't even realize it, but we're just pushing a rock uphill, like Sisyphus, in a never-ending, meaningless cycle. And we do it with pride. After all, we're fighting. But fighting against what? Against reality? Against time? Against ourselves? Wu Wei, on the other hand, invites us to take a different approach, to observe the moment, notice the flow of life, and move in harmony with it. It doesn't mean inaction. It means wisdom, knowing when to act, and more importantly, knowing when not to act. The art of letting things unfold is an art of trust, in nature, in life, and in ourselves. In a world that values speed, control, and excessive action, stillness almost feels subversive. But maybe that's exactly the kind of rebellion we need. Because true power, as Lao Tzu once said, doesn't lie in forcing the world. It lies in walking with it. Wu Wei is one of those ideas that slip away when we try to define them too rigidly. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. The harder you squeeze, the more it runs through your fingers. often translated in different ways. Non-action, effortless action, spontaneous action. The term doesn't mean passivity, but rather a kind of quiet wisdom that knows when to act and, more importantly, when not to interfere. Lao Tzu, in the Tao Te Ching, writes, "The Tao never acts with force, yet nothing is left undone." At first, that sounds like a paradox. How can something that doesn't force anything be so effective? The answer lies at the heart of Wu Wei. When you act in alignment with the nature of things, rather than against it, everything tends to unfold more smoothly, more harmoniously, and surprisingly, more efficiently. The core idea is this: forcing the world to bend to your will is less effective than understanding its flow and adapting to it. Wu Wei isn't about doing nothing. It's about natural, spontaneous movement that comes from a place of refined awareness, almost like dancing with the universe. Zhuangzi, another Taoist sage, offered a powerful image to illustrate this. Picture a master carpenter. He doesn't measure every cut down to the millimeter, nor does he fight the wood. Instead, he feels the grain, listens to the material, and lets his hands be guided. The cut almost makes itself. This is also what we find in Zen. The perfect action is the one that happens effortlessly, as an extension of one's being. And this is where the beauty lies. Wu Wei teaches us that often, doing less means achieving more. It's a deeply counterintuitive philosophy for a society addicted to productivity. But think about it. How many of your best ideas came to you when you were silent, not thinking, not trying? How many complex situations resolved themselves once you stopped pushing? That's why Wu Wei requires sensitivity. It depends on our ability to sense the right moment. In the Tao, everything has its time. There's a time to plant, a time to water, a time to harvest, and a time to wait. If we act out of sync with time, even our best intentions can turn into tragedy. But when we're in tune with life's rhythm, something magical happens. And there's no greater magic than being fully present at the right time, in the right way. Wu Wei doesn't reject effort. It simply reframes it. Instead of fighting the river, we learn to swim with the current. Instead of building walls, we learn to open doors. It's a practice of listening, of surrender, and above all, of humility. Because to live it, we must give up the arrogance of control and embrace the mystery of flow. There's also an ethical dimension to this. When we push too hard, we're usually trying to exert control over others, over time, or over ourselves. But when we act lightly, unattached to outcomes, we become more human, more genuine. There's no pretense, only presence. Wu Wei is like bamboo in the wind. It bends, but it doesn't break. It doesn't resist the storm. It dances with it. And maybe that image says it all, because living in Wu Wei is exactly that. Dancing with life, without choreography, without a script, just trusting that the next step will come in its own time. Imagine you're going on a romantic date. You've spent hours getting ready, rehearsing lines in front of the mirror, picking out clothes that will impress, planning every gesture, every response. But when the moment finally arrives, everything feels off. The words don't flow, the silences are awkward, and you feel like you're playing a character instead of just being there, present. This is a common and deeply revealing example of how the ego and expectations can sabotage the natural flow of experience. A date that could have been light and spontaneous turns into a tense battlefield. And all for one simple reason: we try to control the outcome. We want to be loved. We crave approval. We fear rejection. And in doing so, we stop living the moment and start performing it. Zhuangzi spoke about this in his parable of the archer. An archer shooting for fun hits the target with ease, but when a prize is on the line, he starts to miss. The desire to win, to achieve a specific outcome, interferes with his skill. He falters not because he lacks talent, but because he's overwhelmed by expectation. This lesson echoes through many areas of life. The ego wants certainty, wants victory, wants to control how it is perceived. It clings to the familiar, to the identities we've worked so hard to build: the smart one, the successful one, the wise one, the always right one. But the more the ego takes over, the less room there is for spontaneity, that vibrant spark that connects us to the present. The real issue with the ego isn't its existence, but its excess. When we over-identify with our roles, our opinions, our fear of making mistakes or appearing weak, we block the flow of the Tao. We stop responding to life as it unfolds, and instead follow a rigid script that tries to shape reality to our liking. But reality doesn't bend so easily. The more we try to squeeze it, the more it slips away. That's why Lao Tzu invites us to return to the state of the uncarved block, a powerful metaphor for the human being untouched by conventions, dogmas, and fears. This block represents an open mind, a receptive heart, a body attuned to the now. It's not about ignorance, but a deeper wisdom, the kind that doesn't cling to absolute truths or a fixed way of being. Dutch philosopher and sinologist Wu Wei offers a complementary insight. To act in Wu Wei, we must empty the ego's center, observe clearly and respond with precision. That takes courage. The courage not to hide behind titles, certainties, or masks. The courage to be vulnerable in the face of life. Because deep down, what really prevents Wu Wei isn't a lack of ability. It's fear. Fear of being rejected, of seeming inadequate, of failing. In this context, the ego acts like a bodyguard trying to protect our image. But that protection becomes a prison, and we end up trapped between who we are and who we think we should be. But when we manage to let go, even for a moment, something shifts. We become spontaneous again. We start to listen, to feel, to notice. And we discover that life, when it's not forced, has a surprisingly wise rhythm. Acting without ego is like improvising music. You don't think, you flow. You don't calculate, you feel. And that's when beauty happens. In the silence between the notes. In the space between gestures. In the absence of effort to be anything other than yourself. There is a quiet courage in allowing yourself to be empty. Not the emptiness of apathy, resignation, or lack of meaning, but the fertile emptiness, the kind that isn't tied to fixed concepts, that doesn't need to prove anything to anyone, that listens before it speaks, an emptiness that embraces the present moment as it is, and because of that, acts with precision. Lao Tzu called this the path of not knowing, a path where wisdom isn't about accumulating knowledge, but about letting go of certainty. He wrote, "Give up knowledge, and your problems will end." It may sound like strange advice in a world that values degrees, well-formed opinions, and articulate speech, but it's precisely this attachment to knowing, this constant urge to have an answer, that distances us from truly experiencing things. Taoist wisdom suggests unlearning, not in the sense of ignoring, but of releasing the weight of over-intellectualization, automatic judgment, and constant comparison. When we stop viewing the world through the filters of ego and fixed ideas, we begin to see clearly, and only then can we act fully. Zhuangzi tells a beautiful story about this. His disciple, Yan Hui, wanted to visit the kingdom of Wei to teach wisdom to its tyrant king. Driven by a desire to change the world, he prepared speeches, arguments, and advice. But Confucius, yes, that Confucius, warned him, "You are too full of yourself. The world isn't waiting for another person who thinks they have all the answers." Confucius then suggested what he called fasting of the heart, a deep practice of inner emptiness, of setting aside beliefs, desires, pride, even good intentions. Only then, he said, could Yan Hui truly see the king's situation, understand the context, and listen before speaking. Only then could he be of real use. This story touches on something essential: acting without imposing, being present without trying to control. At this level, Wu Wei isn't just about letting things happen. It's about becoming the space where reality can reveal itself. It's trusting the flow of life so completely that you don't need to force anything to be part of it. You're already in it. The wisdom of emptiness is also the wisdom of listening. When we let go of the need to persuade, control, or win, we create space for others and for life itself to show up. We become receptive, like water that adapts to its container without losing its essence. And in that state, any action that arises is appropriate, effective, and above all, light. Wu Wei, commenting on Wu Wei, describes this state as a crystal-clear clarity that allows for precise responses. But to reach it, we must cross the desert of the ego. We must leave behind the character we've built, the truths we've collected, the expectations that bind us. It takes courage to be an unshaped block, raw, free, open. Acting without imposing may be one of the greatest virtues we can cultivate. In a world full of noise, be silence. In a world full of demands, be space. In a world full of rush, be presence. And so we return to the starting point. Letting things happen isn't giving up. It's trusting. It's being awake enough to recognize that life, in its mystery and intelligence, knows what it's doing. We're the ones who, from time to time, need to get out of the way. If you've made it this far, it's because something inside you is also tired of swimming against the current. Maybe you're ready to loosen the reins a little, to breathe, to live with more ease. And if this video planted that seed in you, then it was already worth it. Now I want to offer you something that isn't for everyone, but it is for you, because you made it here searching for deeper answers about who you are and where your life is heading. I created something that goes beyond a book. I built a map for the soul, a manual that blends science, philosophy, and critical thinking to help you break mental patterns, question your identity, and rebuild yourself from the roots up. This isn't just an e-book with pretty quotes. It's a guide for those who can't stand living on autopilot anymore. If you feel that something inside you is asking for change, for growth, for clarity, then this is your moment. Click the pinned comment and get access now to the Manual of Self-Transformation. Don't read it out of curiosity. Read it because your life depends on it. And if you decide to start this journey, you won't be the same at the end of the road. Now let me share something personal. When I started studying Taoism years ago, I was exactly at a breaking point, trying to control every detail of my life, every career move, every conversation, until everything collapsed. And it was in a forgotten book on a dusty shelf, the Tao Te Ching, that I found the phrase, "Nothing is softer or more flexible than water, yet nothing can resist it." That line broke me, and strangely enough, it rebuilt me too. So thank you for being here, for listening, for reflecting with me. This space we've created together is precious, and if it touched you in any way, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to stop forcing and start flowing. Oh, and of course, if you liked the video, you know what to do. Hit that like button. It's lighter than water. Leave a comment straight from the heart and subscribe to the channel. We promise not to force anything here, and those videos on the screen, well, let's just say they're deeply connected to this theme, but I won't spoil what's in them. You'll have to trust and let it unfold. See you next time.